ice of you to drop by.
Ever wanted the chance to play as that nut-holding squirrel rat from the Ice Age movies? No? Well, tough mammoth shit. Indeed, this month I'm taking a look at Ice Age 2 The Meltdown for PS2. Released in 2006, this movie sees the return of Manny, Sid and Diego as they attempt to escape their current home with the knowledge that a great flood is imminent. Along the way, they meet two opossums named Crash and Eddie, and fellow mammoth Ellie, who thinks she's an opossum, which is quite the concept to absorb.
Needless to say, this movie requires some suspension of disbelief.
Like a great deal of other movie tie-in games, this game only very loosely follows the plot of the movie. Indeed, it doesn't really feel like a movie game. Sure, some parts are reminiscent of scenes in the movie, but for the most part it sees you take control of side character Scrat in pursuance of some nuts. Obviously, that's far more interesting than following a cataclysmic event that could have fatal consequences.
Yeah, nuts to that.
And despite claiming to be a movie game, the main ensemble barely features at all. Instead, this game feels more like a spin-off, and while I don't consider the movie to be a favourite by any means, it feels as though the dramatic aspects of the movie are downplayed here in favour of some bland, easy, and frankly forgettable minigames. As a result, achieving completion is perhaps not as mammoth a task as you might expect.
Nothing like a good pun to break the ice?
And that's why we're going to the water park. No.
Okay, so first thing I want to talk about is the voice acting here.
You'll die slowly and painfully, in front of hundreds of terrified bystanders.
Nobody seems remotely enthused, except perhaps Sid.
No.
John Leguizamo has this weird tendency to make random noises at inappropriate times.
I did all kinds of like curly voices, like woo, I said it. No.
Right. Doctor, he's out of bed again!
As you progress from chapter to chapter, Manny narrates the next stage of the game.
We took her and her two possum brothers with us on our journey.
And to be completely honest, I really don't know why they bothered. The game itself doesn't really maintain much of the narrative, and Manny sounds so bloody bored, I genuinely don't remember what happens.
We found out fast Tony's story was true. The ice was melting, and the glacier protecting our valley home was about to break apart. We went back to warn everyone, but it was still a tough story to sell. Luckily,
Yeah, I'm awake.
Okay, so throughout the game there are these signs to read.
Ooh, jolly good. How fortunate my squirrel thing is illiterate.
These give you hints on how to progress, and if you're still too bloody thick to know what to do, you can check out the hints in the pause menu.
Seriously, this game is one of the easiest I've ever played. If you still need help, then you need help, man.
Speaking of which, I don't think much of the pause menu music. It sounds like Muzak.
Please hold. Your call is important to us.
The controls are very basic, and it's obvious that this release was geared more so to younger players. But it's far from bad. Scrat can double jump and even swim. Once the oxygen meter on the right hand side depletes, you start losing health. And for some reason that I cannot fathom, your health is represented by petals. Destroying flowers provides you with a fresh supply of petals to keep you going. You can also scale walls like a spider Scrat, and also climb slippery surfaces by repeatedly tapping the triangle button to reach the top. The most prolific collectible in the game is nuts. Specifically,
Acorns!
Standard brown acorns are worth 1 point each, while green ones are worth 5. There are also some chestnuts lying around, they're worth 20 points. Earning 1,000 points in each area unlocks a special bonus interview with one of the voice actors, which is actually pretty neat. It's nothing all that amazing, but a better idea than standard movie clips, in that it actually feels like you've earned some kind of backstage pass. Now and again you'll come across an area that you're unable to get out of unless you collect the required number of walnuts. These are either just lying around, or you need to complete some bland and piss-easy minigames to earn them. Once all walnuts in an area are collected, you can squeeze through the crevice to the other side. You also have the ability to sniff out items. When this inquisitive image of Scrat appears, if you hold the L1 button, you can sniff to reveal an aroma. The idea is to follow the scent and sniff out the source. Sniffing the bush reveals the nuts.
That's my motto.
You can also dig for nuts by repeatedly tapping the triangle button over a lodged nut. But that's not everything. Scrat has some surprising combat moves to daze enemies, even despite the fact that most of the enemies are more than 3 times your size. I actually find it kind of amusing watching a squirrel kick a bear till it falls unconscious. Tremendous. Not only can it perform a simple attack combo, you can also perform a ground smash after a double jump, which is not only a great powerful attack in its own right, but you can break open cracked ice to access, yes, more nuts!
I like nuts.
What's more, consuming pieces of fruit increases your special attack meter, which makes Scrat spin at enemies, knocking them out with a fatal blow from his tail, which seems a bit of a stretch to me. I mean, surely that's just like frantically tickling someone with a feather duster.
Behold, the tickle of death. Fear me.
Are you following me?
Eventually we happen upon a stealth section, which is as uninspired as most other stealth sections in movie tie-in games, not to mention completely devoid of logic. Diego needs some peace and quiet, so he requests that you kindly leave him be, but there's nuts to collect, of course. So while Diego inexplicably just stands there facing the other way for no good reason, you need to sneak around collecting nuts. Should Diego turn around, you need to play dead to avoid his gaze. I mean, I don't get how this works, really. Surely you can see me now. I'm right here. What also gets me is that immediately after this task, Diego pisses off anyway.
What was the point?
We then come across a bat cave guarded by a little rhino dude. Fortunately for you, he has a fear of bats, which rather begs the question, why is he hanging around a bat cave in the first place?
Muy stupido.
Using Manny, for what I think is the only time in the whole game, you need to watch the bats and select the one holding his nuts. And yes, this activity is as boring and underwhelming as it sounds. This somehow sends the bats into a frenzy, and your rhino friend just leaves. Okay, see you then! Before long, we find this sign, which tells us that friendly creatures may be able to lend a hand, or foot, or paw, or whatever they have. Sometimes a friendly chat is all that's needed. If that doesn't work, you can always try hitting them.
That's an interesting way of making friends.
And by friendly creatures here, they're referring to this turtle armadillo thing, who talks like Arnold Schwarzenegger, because why the hell not?
I'd love to help you, but I've just had my shell waxed and it's nice and clean and shiny. There's no way I'm gonna risk scuffing my shell to help you out, you little girly mammal.
Throw rocks at him to get him to move, and you can use him as a platform to jump on.
Hasta la vista, wiener.
That's what friends are for.
Speaking of throwing rocks, you can also aim using a first-person view, which I happened to discover by accident.
Wow, sweet Jesus, get that thing off my TV!
We then make it to Penguin Mountain, where we're faced with the challenge of scaling the mountain to reach the top. I say challenge, but it's not the least bit challenging. How ironic. Once we're at the top, it's time for some good old harmless animal cruelty, as we take part in penguin bowling in exchange for a nut. Indeed, these penguins seem to have a death wish. Why would you willingly stand there? Okay, so I really can't explain why too well, but I find this minigame absolutely hilarious. Perhaps it's the panicked noises they make? Or the condescending look of sheer disdain when you don't manage to knock them down. What the fuck's he doing? He's not worthy. And while getting a strike is pretty easy, I actually think it's funnier to just hurl the ball vaguely in the direction of the penguins so that they helplessly topple one by one. Look at them all stand so stoically. Like, I'm not gonna fall over, you'll never get me. Anyway, once you've earned 100 points, you earn your nuts and you get to progress to the next area. Boosh!
Right in a newt-newts.
We then join Sid as we help him maneuver over obstacles on the Eviscerator in an attempt to attract the attention of some female sloths.
No.
To pass, you must earn 7,000 points, which can be earned by collecting nuts and sliding through arches. And there's also the chance to earn bonus points by completing button challenges whilst airborne. But hit too many objects and you lose.
I gotta tell you, that sucked.
Oh, snuffle up yours, I guess.
Make it to the end with enough points, however, and you get... well, nothing really. There are no girl sloths around, but Manny and Diego congratulate you with their usual enthusiasm.
You know, Sid, I think you've proven yourself.
Absolutely. You the man.
Golly, let's not party too hard.
We then progress to more scenic territory, the forest. It looks pretty luscious and vibrant, particularly for a PS2 game. Indeed, one major positive about this game, in my opinion, is its graphics. That said though, aside from a simple palette and scenery change, there's not a fat lot of variety, save for some new enemies, including gophers and big blue monkeys.
Blue monkey?
These monkeys steal your nuts, so it's your job to fucking pelt them with rocks! Die! Die! Die!
Talk about disproportionate retribution. Don't take it personally, this is how I make friends.
Once we progress to the next area via the treetops, we find another monkey with yet another nut. After unintentionally disturbing a bird nest, you have to retrieve all of the baby chicks before the mother, chicken, lets you continue your nut quest. In order to pick up and carry baby birdies, you first need to daze them by hitting them. Yes, I just said that.
I'm not letting you babysit, you monster.
Eventually, we get trapped in an enclosed area where we need to lure this rhino thing into this tree repeatedly in order to retrieve enough fruit to satisfy this lazy bear who's too idle to get it himself.
More! I need more!
You lazy bastard. It's fortunate for you that this rhino is stupid enough to keep hitting the only bloody tree in the area.
Muy stupido.
Once the bear has enough fruit, he can fart again.
Wow, that was great!
Yippee, I guess. Was this the plan all along?
The three main characters then make a brief cameo, as Manny mistakenly thinks the bear fart was another mammoth calling.
It's just that stinky old bear.
We've all been there, eh? We then discover that the nuts we need to progress are high up on ledges, but how do we reach them? Well, the answer, my friend, is quite literally blowing in the wind.
So that's what that song's about. I'm so sorry, Mr. Dillon.
You need to adjust the power of the bear fart to gauge how far and high the squirrel will fly.
I cannot believe I just said that. This is so degrading.
We then climb a big tree. A bigger tree this time.
Oh, the variety!
Fortunately, if you fail at any point, Ellie is there to offer some assistance. Which kind of raises the question, why didn't you do this in the first place? It really would have saved some time. Anyway, we then help Diego in a rather insipid game of whack-a-possum, in which you have to, well, whack the possums, obviously.
Well, what did you think you had to do?
Anyway, it's at this point in the game that the main trio meets Crash and Eddie, the possums, and Ellie, the mammoth, who thinks she's a possum. You be who you wanna be, sunshine.
I defy you to criticize this flawless plot.
We then have to fight against the rapids and collect... Yes, nuts! Who knew? The problem with this sequence is that Scrat moves so quickly and the nuts pop out from the waterfall so infrequently that you're often left waiting for them to reappear. You've got to keep on your toes though, as the angry hungry swimming things aren't far behind. Eventually, one of them swallows us and we find ourselves in the belly of the beast, facing, some kind of amoeba or something? Lord knows. Before too long, we locate the exit, guarded by some funky-looking eyes. Can't imagine there's much to look at in here, mate. Once we've blinded them all with pebbles that just happen to be lying around, we're able to crawl into... this anus!
We're able to. That doesn't mean you should.
The creature coughs us up, fortunately shooting us out the other end, and we wind up in a mud bog. Here we need to use the geysers to progress. Plugging the holes around the geysers gives them an extra boost, meaning you can reach higher areas. Eventually we come across another... chicken who wants us to return all the coloured eggs to their correct nests, without the other birds noticing.
Egg thief! Egg thief! Away from my nest!
It's nothing too taxing, but it is pretty boring. And the boringness doesn't stop there, folks. Before long, we meet some tapirs, or whatever they are, who will only allow you to swim on their backs if you complete another mind-numbing sequence puzzle. The ability to ride on the tapirs makes the journey across the bog a lot easier. Eventually, this leads us to a cave, home to the only boss we encounter in this game. Considering the vast array of Ice Age creatures they could choose from, I'm sure you're all quite intrigued as to what this boss could possibly...
Yeah, it's a giant spider, okay? Good to see you again, old friend.
Giant spider!
In fact, this cave is full of giant spiders, and they're surprisingly tough considering the enemies you've fought so far. Remember the bears? Yeah, well, they're no match for these guys. First, you need to hit them until they fall on their back, and then stomp on them to finish them off. As for the giant spider, you need to simply throw rocks at its abdomen. This angers it, and it will jump, causing the ground to shake and more spiders to spill from the ceiling. Once Incy Wincy's been vanquished, we can use its corpse as a trampoline. How lovely. Farewell, my friend. See you in some other licensed game.
I'd say it's been a pleasure, except it hasn't.
Once we return to the bog, we find that the only way we can retrieve all the nuts is by dazing and riding on swamp birds. What's more, if you try and walk too far by yourself, an exclamation mark will appear indicating that you're gonna get stuck in the mud if you continue. With the swamp birds, you can run through the mud, jump higher, and glide. Finding all the nuts here sees you progress to the next area. Believe it or not, this next part is actually partly based on a scene from the movie. Yeah, this is a movie game, remember? Sid is being worshipped by a tribe of mini sloths. Ah, but fear not. Before long, we return to performing miscellaneous activities that have no bearing on the plot whatsoever.
I was worried there for a second. God forbid a movie game actually followed the plot of the movie.
To retrieve our walnut in this area, we take part in a digging race with Crash and Eddie. Then it turns out this sloth has lost his mojo. Mojo birds. And it's your job to return them by chasing them, while the cook needs some fresh chili for his fire soup. Completing these tasks sees Scrat rewarded with walnuts. Another walnut can be accessed by feeding coloured offerings to this totem, which rotate the matching coloured parts of the totem, eventually aligning the vine to the top. Anyway, the sloths cannot complete their celebrations until the beacon is lit. And guess whose job that is? Indeed, this next sequence sees Scrat light his tail on fire, because there was no safer way of doing this, and race to the top to light the beacon. What would they have done without me, eh? Once this is over, we rejoin Sid, who's still making abnormal grunting noises. I love that the game provides no context here. Why are you smiling at, you little psycho? This place is filled with hazards, most prominently lava, fiery geysers, and worst of all, giant spiders. Bet you didn't see that coming.
Phew, I was having withdrawal symptoms there for a second.
Now and again, we need to use our fiery tail to burn some spiders' webs. Once we're through to the next room, we find Sid dangling helplessly over a pit of lava, and it's our job to cut him down. Wait, down?
Alright then.
Stomping the pegs all around a room eventually frees the sloth, apparently.
No.
Once we've made our escape, Manny then provides us with some crucial exposition.
The water in the valley was getting more and more violent and washed Ellie away, trapping her in a cave.
I say crucial, absolutely no aspects of this narrative are covered in the final level of the game. First, you need to find some way to drain the water so Diego can pass through, and before you ask, yes, of course, it involves nuts. And a little further along, in order to obtain a walnut, we need to free a mammoth trapped in ice. Who then appears to drop dead just a few seconds later. Mammoths in these games never seem to have much luck, do they? No wonder they're all extinct. Once we've completed all there is to do here, we can sneak past this chicken using an eggshell, because an eggshell moving on its own is obviously far less conspicuous than a squirrel. At least it's not a great big fuck-off ceramic pot though, eh? And shortly after this, the game just sort of ends. That's it. Show's over, folks. The closest thing to a congratulations is another one of Manny's insipid narrations.
Something unforeseen but life-saving happened. The glacier cracked and the water in the valley drained out. And we're not sure how this happened, but we're not going to question a good thing.
Could you not sound more enthused? You're supposed to be escaped with your life happy, not family reunion happy.
Wow, that was great.
Okay, so as a movie game, I'm disappointed, but had this been instead advertised as a spin-off game like the recently released Scrat's Nutty Adventure for PS4,
Why does this exist? Was this in high demand?
I might have had more of an idea of what to expect. It's not bad by any means, and I guess they simply wanted to portray the events of the movie from Scrat's perspective. While the controls are simple, there's not a lot to complain about, but the game is very easy, and ultimately underwhelming. Could they not think of a better ending than this? Heck, even another giant spider would make for a more interesting finale. Indeed, Ice Age 2, the game, is decent enough for a single playthrough, but it's not as cool as it's cracked up to be.
Spectacular. No, ice-tacular.
No.